Wheat Ridge Channel 8, keeping you informed on events in your community.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the October 20th, 2011 meeting of the Wheat Ridge Planning Commission. Can I please have a roll call of members?
Ann Brinkman.
Present.
Alan Bucknam is absent. Mark Dietrich is absent. And Tracy Gildner is absent this evening. Dick Matthews.
Here.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
George Pond.
Present.
Steve Timms.
Here.
Okay, can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I move to approve the order of the agenda.
Second.
Could I add one more thing after the last case? I just want to address the issue of leftover hearing signs that are being left on properties after. And we had addressed this a couple of years ago about taking them down about 2 weeks after the hearing. Right on Wadsworth, there's 3 of them that I know of. And then I'm sure there's ones on other properties. So I just want to talk about it. Thanks.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
Second.
A vote, please.
Motion passes 5-0.
And can
I move to approve the minutes of the October 6, 2011 meeting.
Second.
vote, please?
Okay, and that motion passes with Commissioner Brinkman abstaining.
Okay, now is time for public forum. This is time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on tonight's agenda. No one signed up. Anyone else we're missing? Okay, thank you. So I would like to open public hearing for case number MS-11-03, an application filed by David Myers for Metro Community Provider Network for approval of a final plat with right-of-way dedications for property zoned planned commercial development and located at 7495 West 29th Avenue. Do we have a staff report?
Should we take care of the lights? Sure. Thank you. For the record, Meredith Reckert, Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. Good evening. Case number MS-11-03 is a request for approval of a final plat for property zone plan commercial development at 7495 West 29th Avenue. Approximate size of the property is 4.6 acres, and it is, again, zone plan commercial development. I'd like to enter into the record the comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, case file and packet materials, and the contents of this digital presentation. The property is located within the city of Wheat Ridge, and all proper noticing and publication requirements have been met. Therefore, Commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case this evening. There we go. On the overhead, I think people are fairly familiar with the property. It is outlined in red and has Wadsworth running down, excuse me, the western perimeter with West 29th Avenue on the south. 30th, I called this the inside curve of 30th and Webster because it's got kind of a funny configuration. But anyway, the intersection of 30th and Webster is at the northeast corner of the property. The site is currently vacant except for an existing water well pump house located in this area and the parking lot, which you can see in the overhead. There are about 4 dozen mature trees on the property of various species and health. And there is a fence and landscape buffer which separates the property from the residential area on Webster Street. This is a copy of the zoning map. Again, the property is outlined in red. It does have planned commercial development zoning, which is designated by the gray pattern. It does have a variety of land uses that surround the property. To the north and east is a primarily low-density residential neighborhood with some, mostly single-family with some duplexes scattered in there. R1A on the east and R2 and R1A to the north. To the south is property zoned R2, which contains the municipal building as well as Hayward Park and the rest of the improvements associated with City Hall. And then across Wadsworth on the west side is unincorporated Jefferson County, which has the Olinger Cemetery and mortuary located on it. Just quickly to go through some slides, we've seen these before. This is standing on West 29th Avenue at the entrance to City Hall looking north towards that existing drive access from 29th Avenue into the property. This fence that's currently existing that you can see in the photo was one of the barriers between, or the buffers between the property and the residential neighborhood to the east. Looking straight on towards some of the existing mature trees on the property, again, south side of 29th Avenue. And then looking sort of catty-corner across it towards Wadsworth, the intersection of 29th Avenue is located right here. Looking north along Wadsworth, again, you can, this was taken, I think, earlier this spring, but the conditions are still fairly consistent. Just a couple shots of the interior of the site. This is that well house that I spoke about. Some more of the parking lot. This is looking south towards where the structures used to be on the property. Here I'm standing on the northern portion of the property looking east. This is that kind of funky little intersection of Webster Street here and 30th. And the right-of-way, there's an existing right-of-way for 30th Avenue, 25 feet in wide, which is in this area right here. This is an existing driveway that was on the property which accessed one of the old structures. And then this is standing in 30th Avenue looking west, again towards that intersection with Webster Street. So what you have in front of you tonight is a fairly simple plat approval. I'm going to just touch briefly on some of the history, just to familiarize the folks in the audience and yourself with what has happened with the property. It was rezoned from R2 to PCD in 2005. We did have a subsequent ODP that was approved for the property, which was intended to be developed as a restaurant retail site, and that never did come to fruition. Then earlier this year, there was a request for a specific ODP, which was approved to allow for an approximate 48,000 square foot medical office clinic. This is the site plan for the plat that was, or for the development plan that was reviewed by Planning Commission in July, and there was a lot of debate on some of the design issues on this, particularly the extension of 30th Avenue was not very popular with the neighborhood. You did recommend approval, but there was a condition relating to that. So before we went to City Council, we got with the applicant, got with CDOT, and tried to figure out what would be a better fit for everybody. So this is that north portion again. It was redesigned so that that access point into the property, instead of connecting right here the way it did before with 30th and Webster, it comes from Wadsworth into the interior of the site, and there's no connection for 30th Avenue. A little bit hard to read, so again, we just took a colored rendering and showed that this is the Planning Commission version, which had the street punched through, and then this was the final version, which was approved by City Council on September 12th. So the intent of this application is to facilitate construction of the new concept for the property. Again, it will accommodate their design with the medical office building and the associated parking and circulation grounds. One of the main reasons we're looking at a plat tonight is because there's some fairly substantial right-of-way dedications that need to occur for the property to develop. Along Wadsworth, we're looking for right-of-way in the width of 20 feet. And on 29th Avenue, to accommodate the decel lane and the turning movements onto Wadsworth, the right-of-way dedication varies from about 19 feet towards the intersection down to 6 feet at the eastern portion. We're also dedicating a little rectangular piece up at the northeast corner to help do some improvements to that intersection of 30th and Webster. Again, there is no right-of-way in addition to that for 30th Avenue, and 30th will not go through, although there will be a pedestrian access built within that strip of right-of-way. Let's see, we are also reserving a 30-foot reservation along Wadsworth for future widening of the street. And within that dedication area, a dedication occurs for a detached sidewalk, which is 10 feet in width, pushed to the back of that reservation, and that sidewalk construction will occur with the project. Let's see what else. Shown on the plat is a 25-foot wide access easement extending from the curb cut from Wadsworth down through the site. And the intent of that was to provide emergency access. However, we think from a staff perspective it makes more sense to probably have a blanket cross access easement. Quite frankly, the fire department's going to drive where they're going to drive, and we think that it's more appropriate to have the blanket cross access. And then finally, at the very southeast corner of the site is the area that's devoted for the detention pond. All of the agencies who commented on this can serve the property with upgrades at the developer's expense. Public Works has reviewed and approved the plat with all of the appropriate dedications. They also recommend elimination of the specific access easement in lieu of a blanket easement. Based on my presentation, we have concluded that all requirements of Article 4 of the subdivision regulations have been met, and also that the plat will accommodate a new development scenario for the property. So we are giving a recommendation of approval with 2 conditions. The first one is related to the requirement for a subdivision improvement agreement with financial guarantees submitted by the applicant at the time of the recording. And the second one is related to that cross-access easement, replacing it with a blanket easement with the city's standard language. I would point out that there's a typographical error in the recommended motion, and I believe it's related to the first conclusion. I think it says all requirements of Article IC have been met. They're really supposed to be Article 4. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions.
I know that a lot of the neighbors in that area were very concerned about the drainage.
Yes.
Can you explain to us how the drainage will now work and what provisions are being made for that?
Well, essentially, and we've got the civil engineer here, and I'll probably defer most of that discussion with him, but all of the drainage essentially ends up in this low portion of the property down in the southeast corner. Public Works has reviewed a preliminary drainage plan, and it does appear that drainage area will be functional. They're still working on some tweaks with where to outlet might be under 29th Avenue into Hayward Park. But I believe I'll let David Meyer address that.
Yeah. Could you go back to or slides that are talking about the agencies?
Yeah.
Or forward?
Forward.
Okay, I misread it. I thought you had mentioned both Con Mutual as well as Wheat Ridge Water, so it's okay here, but I read it wrong there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions for staff? No. Thank you, Meredith. Do we have a presentation by the applicant? Thank you, and if you can please state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address.
Hello, I'm Dave Meyer with R&R Engineers and Surveyors, located at 710 West Colfax, Denver, Colorado, 80204. And we're the civil engineer and surveyor representing MCPN on the project. Meredith did a good job of summarizing the overall project. I will hit briefly on the drainage discussion. There will be a detention pond in this southeast corner. Essentially, the site is going to follow the topography that there is now. Essentially, it works its way to that low point. So there'll be a detention pond in that corner where the flows from the site will work through that detention pond. The ultimate release of it will be through an outlet structure in that corner, and right now we're looking at then piping it under 29th and releasing it to that old irrigation ditch, which isn't functioning anymore, just across 29th in Hayward Park. And so the pond has been sized basically to cover the site and the detention to basically accommodate and release water from the site at a historic rate. So we won't have water proceeding to the east into the residential properties. Any emergency overflow, or if the outlet structure were clogged, the release would be out into 29th. So there is that provision as well for the extra security for the pond.
Thanks, David. Questions? Ann?
So if you are dumping to the non-working ditch on the other side, does any work have to be done to the ditch over there by the city?
No, from what we've seen so far, there won't need to be additional improvements. Essentially, it does flow then to the east.
Okay, so it's free flowing. It's not blocked off.
Correct. Yeah, it's
No
not
driveways or
there. It does.
Okay,
continue to the east.
okay, normally.
Yeah.
As if it was a big rain, Hayward would drain in there and work its way down to probably.
Yes. Yeah. So there's water that gets in there anyway. I think
Okay.
it was a historic irrigation ditch that was used. It's no longer.
Okay, it was
used.
abandoned.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, now is the time for public comment related to this case. I see that we have 2 people signed up. I'll call you up, and if you could please come up to the podium and state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address. And I think I see that the first name is Louise. And I can't read your last name, I apologize.
Good evening. My name is Louise Canjar. I live at 3055 Webster. Canjar is C-A-N-J-A-R. My only misgiving, I'm glad to know that the right-of-way didn't involve 30th Avenue and Webster Street. My question is the northeast corner, the pedestrian access. Are the sidewalks going to extend across? I mean, the access, I don't understand. The sidewalk ends at the corner before 30th Avenue. So how is access provided onto that property?
The developer will have to have that designed, but essentially these, let's see, I don't have a pointer over here, so let me come out. Okay, so in response to the question, let's see, this is that little piece of right-of-way that will be dedicated to complete the improvements and really make this a functional turn. Right now, the asphalt stops in this area, and it's not very good access. So this will be completed, and I would suspect that there will be a sidewalk installed in this kind of configuration, because there will be public improvements put in right here. So the sidewalk in the right-of-way will have to connect to that.
So the sidewalk will come off of Webster, or excuse me, off of Wadsworth and 30th?
Okay, let's put up a different.
Yeah, it doesn't have the ultimate build out of that.
Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't. This shows a little bit better. Here's that drive-in from Wadsworth. This is the sidewalk, which will be adjacent to the property. So there'll have to be some sort of connection in here, but it has not been designed yet. Yeah.
Thank you, Meredith, for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. That's it. Jack Anderson. Thank you, Jack. If you can tell us your name, spell your last name, and your address, please.
My name is Jack Anderson. My last name is Anderson. I live at 3120 Webster. And I would just like to follow up on that northeast corner. Is that going to be an entrance to the medical property?
No, it's not.
Right. That was my only really question. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. We don't have anyone else signed up, but is there anyone else who cares to comment on this case? Okay. Well, we'll close the public hearing on this case and open it up for discussion.
I, for one, am still concerned about the location of that sidewalk. I happen to be in that area recently, and along the north side of that 30th Avenue right-of-way appears to be depressed, like it is a ditch. It is lower, and I believe the water runs from west to east and goes into a drainage at the corner of Webster and 30th. And I would be concerned about changing the drainage. If that drainage is working, and I will have to confess, I asked a neighbor if that drainage was working pretty well, and she said that that drain actually does drain pretty well, but I would be concerned about changing the drainage to disrupt what apparently is working in that neighborhood.
Any other comments or discussion?
I'll be voting for this.
Quick comment. I do appreciate staff going back, working with the applicant as well to reconfigure that from comments from our last planning commission. So thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of case number MS-11-03, a request for approval of a final plat for property located at 7495 West 29th Avenue for the following reasons. Number one, all requirements of Article 4 of the Zoning and Development Code have been met. And number two, it will accommodate the new development scenario for the property with the following conditions. Number one, a subdivision improvements agreement, an SIA, with financial guarantees will be required at the time of plat recording. Number two, a 25-foot wide emergency access easement through the site be eliminated and replaced with a blanket cross-access easement. And number three, the city's standard language for blanket cross-access be added.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, we will open up case number MS-11-04, an application filed by Mike Faro for RV America for a two-lot minor subdivision plat with right-of-way dedications on property zoned mixed-use commercial interstate and mixed-use neighborhood and located at 11808 West 44th Avenue.
And I believe that there was a memorandum in the packet indicating that staff does recommend a continuance. The date we included in the packet was November 3rd. We really think it's more appropriate to continue it until the 17th, and the applicant has agreed with that. So we would be looking for a motion to continue until November 17th.
I move to continue the public hearing to the November 17th Planning Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote.
And that motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and I'd like to open for public hearing case number ZOA1104, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 concerning regulation of massage therapy and massage parlors. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, yes. Ken Johnstone, Director of Community Development. This is an ordinance amending the city's regulations as they pertain to massage parlors, massage therapists, and massage therapy centers. It's really at the request of staff, notably the city's attorney's office, and in coordination with City Council, that we bring this to you. We're really trying to accomplish, I think in a nutshell, three things. Number one, clarify that the state is the primary regulator and licensor as it pertains to massage therapy and massage therapy centers. That really responds to a change in state statute that occurred a couple years ago, where the state kind of solidified its regulatory authority in terms of the licensure of those entities. Second, we are trying to better define our regulations as they pertain to massage parlors, and in particular strengthen the city's operational regulations as they pertain to massage parlors. Essentially, a massage parlor is a massage operation, if you will, that doesn't meet the licensure requirements, the training and certification requirements that are required for massage therapists and massage therapy centers. And third, we need to establish permissible locations for massage parlors. Currently, the zoning code is silent when it comes to where massage parlors can be located in terms of zoning districts. And that last item, those amendments to Chapter 26, are really what is under discussion this evening. The Planning Commission obviously has jurisdiction over Chapter 26, and any code change that pertains to Chapter 26 requires a recommendation from the Planning Commission that gets forwarded to City Council for consideration. We have been in front of City Council back in May and more recently to discuss this item and receive their direction on this ordinance at a study session. In terms of that zoning district question, as the ordinance is being proposed, it would limit massage parlors to being located in industrial zone districts. There are also already in the code a number of separation requirements that apply to massage parlors, notably a 750-foot separation requirement from schools, from daycares, from parks, and from residential zoning districts, churches as well. The impact of those separation requirements are depicted in a series of maps that were included in your packet, and I think what you'll see is the effect of the separation requirements, in addition to the proposal to allow these operations to be located only in industrial zone districts, really limits them to an area of town with industrial zoning, to some extent in a small area in the northeast part of town, but more notably in the northwest part of town. And I would be glad to entertain questions.
I apologize if this sounds like a silly question, but Section 2, Item D in the code, all massage shall be administered in a conspicuous place on the premises. Explain conspicuous to me, because I'm having a different view of what conspicuous means.
Right. This is frankly similar language to how we regulate sexually oriented businesses, and the intent here is that conspicuous would mean that there would be a manager of the operation would be able to witness the massage services that were being performed at any one time. So there would not be private rooms, if you will. They would be, relatively in the open.
Really?
Yes. And that's an operational restriction that's being recommended by the city attorney's office and our police department as well.
Okay. Well, I trust them. That's what I was thinking it meant.
Yep.
I wasn't sure that was the intent.
That is the intent.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that.
I am concerned Actually, I hike into the Grand Canyon regularly, and I found the best thing I can do before a hike is go and get a pedicure. Now, included with that pedicure is a pretty good foot massage. When I read Section 1, I think where I go for my pedicure is actually included as a massage parlor, because I think that what happens, the massage I get as a part of that pedicure, is included in that definition under Section 1. And I'm kind of concerned about that. I think I know what you're trying to get at, but
Sure.
I'm concerned that it's too broad a scope
Right.
of that. So I'm kind of open for interpretation on that.
Right. Certainly that's not the intent. I think those type of spa services that are available in association with other personal services such as a pedicure or manicure or even certain hair salon services as ancillary to that service, in my mind would continue to be allowed as ancillary to that service, and I know that's certainly the intent. But if we could certainly have the Attorney's Office take a look at that and see if there's any fine-tuning of the language that could clarify that intent.
So when I was reading this, since you now say that this has the support of the police and district attorney, I tan occasionally by false means, and they have a massage table in the back and a masseuse, a registered certified masseuse, and since that's not the intent here, right?
It would be if that was more of a full-blown massage service.
Yeah.
That's just something that they offer as a separate
Yes.
standalone service.
Yes.
They would be regulated as a massage therapist, so they would need to be a licensed massage therapist
Which they are.
and with a license by the
Which
state,
they are.
and
And then
they'd
we're
be
okay.
a permissible use in
That's what I took.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening. Just a couple of questions. Looking at these maps, starting with map E, it looks like it shows the existing location of massage parlors in the city.
Yes,
And looking at that, it looks like there's 3 existing. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Do you know what those are currently zoned, those properties?
I would assume they have commercial zonings. I'm not sure what commercial zonings. They were allowed essentially to operate under the premise that they were initially massage therapy centers.
And if this regulation were to pass, they would be legal nonconforming? Is that how the city would regulate them?
That's the interpretation that we're making at this point.
And then the ordinance.
But they just to clarify, Commissioner Timms, they would be subject to the new operational regulations.
Okay, that's sure. And then in terms of the proposal for future ones, industrial use by right,
Correct.
as long as they met these buffer requirements, these separation requirements.
Separation requirements and of course the operational requirements that would be reviewed and confirmed through the business license process.
Okay, thank you.
And just an idle curiosity question, there are massage therapists like Rolfers that actually operate out of their home, and they actually don't treat any patients or customers at their home locations. They have a table that they go around in. This would in no way affect their business, would it?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just another follow-up. Since they're regulated to mostly to the northwest part of the city, would any impact occur with the future light rail station or the sub-area plan associated with that in terms of this? I'm just curious.
It could, to the extent that we have developed a mixed-use zoning district that could apply up there. We haven't gone very far in pursuing a rezoning of the property. We've not received any private rezoning requests. We've had some preliminary conversations with the property owners up there about a city-initiated rezoning, but we haven't pursued that in a formal way yet. If they were to be rezoned to a mixed-use TOD, some properties up there, the mixed-use TOD zoning would not allow massage parlors. It would allow massage therapy and massage therapy centers. So that could reduce the amount of available land in that area.
I guess my only comment is I'm still a little unclear about the massage parlors, massage therapists, and I've read through this several times, but it does seem pretty clear that, what the zoning is taking place and where they're going. I really don't have any other comments other than that.
Thanks.
Don't have anything. It does not look as though we have anyone here to comment from the public. So we'll verify that.
Thanks, Meredith.
Okay, well, we'll close the public hearing portion of this. Is there any discussion?
I move to recommend approval of Council Bill 32, Series 2011, as pertains to Chapter 26 of the Municipal Code for the following reasons. The ordinance is consistent with applicable state statutes. The ordinance provides for a reasonable amount of land for massage parlor operations, preserving the city's primary commercial corridors for other higher intensity uses as contemplated in the city's comprehensive plan.
Second.
Question for staff? Once this goes before City Council, and if it passes, do you notify the 3 businesses?
We could. It's not, and I think we, as a practical matter, we will. We don't necessarily, when uses become nonconforming, have a requirement to notify them. But because of the operational changes, I'm fairly certain that the police department will be visiting the properties to inform them of that and to, gain compliance with those operational requirements.
Okay, thank you. Just clarifying.
All right, vote.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And the last item on our agenda tonight, Ann's request to discuss public notice signs and their removal.
So the reason I raised this is that there are some signs that have been around for 3-4 years, let alone 1 year. And I had raised this a couple years ago. My concern is that if a sign stays there, when a new sign comes forward, everybody's ignoring it, and so they won't be aware if there is a new case, because they're so used to seeing the old placard there. And so we had talked about it, and I thought, and I did not take a look, but I thought we put something in the code that said that 2 weeks from the final disposition of the case that it would be pulled down.
Well, I think that has been codified.
Yep.
I have that recollection. People aren't sometimes very good about doing it, but what I would propose is every time we have a zoning action,
Yep.
we do an action letter to them, and perhaps include in the action letter, please make sure you remove your signs.
Okay.
And short of that, I don't want to cite people for that. It would be staff going out and yanking them down, which wouldn't be that big a deal, but it'd be nice to have people take responsibility for their own.
Well, I was just going to ask if code enforcement sees them. If not, take them down or notify them without having to fine them. But it's a point of, it does the community a disservice because people ignore them, and then if there's a case, they've missed the case. And I'm sure there's more around town. I immediately see 2 on Wadsworth every day. Yeah, every day I see them almost.
Like I said, we have the standard letter. We'll include that in it.
Okay.
Like I say, sometimes we have out-of-state property owners who are involved, and if that's the case,
I don't think there's any intention of being malicious. Yeah.
You're right, because people become used to seeing it, and then if it's not there, or if there's a new one put up, then, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So we'll just roll that in.
Thank you.
If I can follow that up with a dumb mechanical question. Those signs are basically dry erase boards where you make the markings on them. Those are not recyclable signs?
Unfortunately, they are not dry erase boards. They are corrugated plastic, sort of like the cardboard you see. And we spend quite a bit each year buying those and using them, and it's not very efficient. It's not very eco-friendly, I would agree, until we can find some other. What does Commerce City do?
We struggle with that too, and it's expensive, and it seems like it's one of those things that we have to do and we want to do, but we've surveyed cities. There's not.
You can't use dry erase because then it'll dry erase.
The weather, unless you had, they'd be way more expensive because you'd have to have some sort of cover over them that you could go in and seal. So right now, I think we pay about $5 a piece for the signs, and on multiple, properties that have multiple actions, it gets spendy, and that's why we charge just $450 off the top of our application fees to cover our publication and posting signs. So it's not something the city really pays for. It comes from the applicant, but it still begs the question of, is there some other alternative?
I just have a question that's not about signs, but it is something I wanted to bring up, if that's okay with the commission. I apologize for not bringing it up earlier. This is just a what if, but I'm curious. We have an election coming up, right, in a couple of weeks, and we had the potential to lose 3 members of our commission. Commissioner Dietrich is out for some time, right? So my question is, if we're down to 4, what happens? Is that so until the council appoints?
Well,
how would that?
If we lose any, they don't get sworn in until whatever date, and so between that time we'd get another commissioner, correct?
Well, hopefully, but sometimes people have to apply, council has to go through them, then they have to be appointed. It could. We know there could be a problem. So if you know anybody who, we're always looking for good candidates, and
I think just to reiterate, Commissioner Brinkman, though, until the new council members are sworn in or other elected office, that anyone would continue to be able to serve on the commission. So, depending on when that swearing in occurs, we still have a commission.
I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
One, I think.
Sorry?
Oh, yes. So in lieu of that, we are, because of the continuance to November 17th, we're requesting that the Planning Commission meeting on November 3rd be canceled. Oh. So if you want to make a motion to adjourn until the 17th, that would be great.
I make a motion that the November 3rd meeting for Planning Commission be canceled.
Second.
And that motion passes 5-0.
How about leaving tonight?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Wheatridge Channel 8, keeping you informed on events in your community.